Hi there, Melanie here. Good evening, good afternoon. Thank you for joining me for the tutorial on how to scotch stitch needlepoint. I'm working on a canvas, some type of cloth canvas, bought at Michael's, 12 count. And the needle is, some tapestry needle, new wool, virgin. This you could work with acrylic, possibly embroidery silks, cottons, many different cloths you can use fibers you could use, okay? So without further ado, we're going to get into how to needlepoint the Scotch stitch. Let's turn it around. Okay, so I got started on a tutorial before. I wasn't real happy with it, so let me do it again. So I'm basically just coming up through any area, for example, right? And coming up through any square area, square. This coming up right here, I'm holding the back of the thread, right behind the hoop. This is coming up on one. This, you're going to go right across to the next square diagonally and go down through the stitch. That is two, okay? Then you're going to come up underneath the stitch right there. Sorry about that. Come up through there, three. You're going to skip this stitch here and go right next to the stitch to the right of the first movement there. That's 3 to 4. You're going to come right back under the stitch here. And then I'm going to go down, skip two squares diagonally, and there's 5 and 6. Okay? And you're going to come up like the stitch is kind of a little bit, the thread, the yarn is a little bit over. So you kind of have to find it, right? And that's 7 and 8. You're going to skip that one box. So you just do the same thing, but in reverse. So once you get to the long stitch, you just do the same type of thing in reverse. And that's 7 and 8. And then 9 and 10 is going to be like 1 and 2. You're just crossing the intersection diagonally. And that is the Scotch stitch. One more time. Okay. I'm going to put it there separately because what happens on, it's a bit different. What happens when you're working the stitch right next to each other. And I think maybe I'm going to this part right here. So hey, let's do it again, okay? So over here, I'm just gonna get started over here, anywhere, all right? Just to show you how it goes one more time. Come up on one, and put it in the frame here, the camera. I'm going to go down on two, which is right here. I'm going to come back up underneath that stitch, which is 3. I'm going to cross this one intersection, this one square actually, and come over here to 4. Then I got that long one again, which is right there underneath the stitch. And I just dropped the needle. Tutorial land. Okay, and here is up through 5. Okay. And believe you me, this is a lot easier when you're not doing it this way. It's a fun stitch. Up through 5 and down through 6. So you're crossing 2 squares. I'm going right next to this stitch here. Down through 6. Right? And then you're going to see there's a little square right there. It's right there. That's 7. Come up through 7. And cross 1 square. Just down through 8. And then there's 9 coming up here. And then there's 10. Okay. So basically you just do the first 2 stitches. You make the long stitch. You do these first 2 stitches. You make the long stitch. Then you do the other 2 stitches, just doing it in reverse. You know, this crossing an intersection, this crossing a whole square diagonally, this crosses 2 squares diagonally, then this crosses 1 square, and then this crosses intersection. I guess the word is either like ascending or descending or something with these stitches. So that's the Scotch stitch. Now bear with me while I make the next stitch. So let's say I want to make a stitch here, right? I want to make another. See how it makes that beautiful square? I want to make another. I want to make another one, right? And I'm like, hey, I think I want to make another stitch. So there's a couple ways I guess you could go about doing this, but I am looking right at this book to kind of get an idea of where that is, right? So here is, this is the stitch here, okay? I'm going to skip this stitch diagonally, which would have been here, and I'm going to go there, okay? I'm skipping 1 square. I have it right? Hopefully I do. And then I got this square that I'm skipping, and then I'm going into that stitch. That was really for that was really 9 and 10, and then that's that first stitch there. The long stitch is going to come underneath, and that's going to go below that stitch there. And then the next one is going to go right there. And I'm going to skip the stitch and come down there. And then this next stitch is going to go there. And then I'm going to come back around right to here. And that's how you create the second one. I hope I was in the frame. Oh gosh, I hope I wasn't over here somewhere. That's how you would create that. So when I'm looking at the book, right, it seems like it's just, you could figure it out. If you can figure out how to get from this stitch to that stitch, you can pretty much get this one figured out. It's like the stitches move in the direction of the longest stitch is at the top for these 2 stitches. So you see this long stitch is right here at the top, then the short stitch, then this stitch here, then the long stitch, then the short stitch, then the shortest stitch, right? So that is kind of how that moves. But let's say you wanted to make the stitch in this direction. Okay, so you're basically starting the stitch here. Okay, so what I mean is I want to make the stitch going this way, instead of the stitch going that way. But it's got to get connected somehow, right? So this stitch, this one's going to start here. Okay, I'm looking right at the book as I do this. This one is going to come there. Okay, this stitch is going to come there. I'm going to skip a stitch, come this direction, and I'm going to come right here to the stitch next to it. I'm going to skip the two squares, right? Then I'm going to come right here. Yeah, yeah, yeah. From this direction, it looks like, what am I doing? So right here. This is that, and then I'm gonna skip, and the stitch is there. Excuse the noise, that's my neighbor's chair, and you can hear them. I don't know where the chair noise, that's in the next apartment. Then I'm gonna come up here, and I am going to go down there. Okay, so there go the Scotch stitch. Hopefully I was in the camera frame. Hopefully you could see that. This is the Scotch stitch. A lot of fun. This stitch is really a lot of fun. And you can, you can really play with these stitches, right? So it's almost like, once you get some of these basic needlepoint stitches, you can pretty much get this going in much any direction you you could probably come up with your own stitches, for goodness sake. That's the beauty of these type of work. Now there's something called the checker stitch, which involves the tent stitch, the continental stitch, and the scotch stitch. Okay, so right here, if I wanted to checkerboard this, I can this is the checkerboard stitch. Okay, this is the tent stitch. Sorry. But this, when you combine this with the scotch stitch with the continental stitch in a checkerboard fashion, this is what this is called. It's called a checker stitch. According to Reader's Digest, needlepoint reference. Okay, let me get over here. And you just go 3 stitches across and 3 stitches down, as you can see. So it's a 9-stitch square. Okay. And now we'll just demonstrate it for you so you can see that this is what's called the checkerboard. Sorry, not checkerboard, but checker stitch. And it's the combination of the scotch stitch and the tent stitch, also known as the continental stitch. And ta-da! And there is the tent stitch, okay? So that would be the checkerboard stitch right here. So you start with the checkerboard And then let's say you want to now go to the the scotch stitch, sorry. You're going to start that stitch right the exact same way you would start the stitch. You're going to come up here, cross this one here, you go right next to the stitch, and cross this one here. That's one square you skip diagonally, come down. You're going to skip the two. You see how this thing is? It's very bizarre. Skip the two squares diagonally. You're going to come back through here. You skip that one. And then you're going to come right through there. And you're going to come down there. And that's the scotch stitch. And then there it is checkered, right? You checker it. And you can, I would, say you could make it in different colors, right? You can actually make it different. So let's make it different. All right, so I just changed yarn. And I'm going to make this different. Here's one. So I'm going to do the 10th stitch. So that's 3 stitches here. 3 rows of 3 stitches, basically is what it is. That's going to equal the size of the scotch stitch per square, right? So if you really want to know how many squares per se that the scotch stitch is using, is using 9 squares. Okay. There's the second row. This yarn's a little bit thin, so I may not get total coverage over the canvas, but just enough for the demonstration purposes and the tutorial. And then here is the second one, and here is 2, 1, oh, can I count, here's 2, and here is 3. There's your checker, not checkerboard, it's checker. And then I would probably do this next one in pink in the scotch stitch. But really, I think this could, work out any way you'd like to. But if you alternate the scotch stitch with these 3 rows, 3 down, 10th stitch, that is technically the checker stitch. Okay, hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Hope it was really helpful for you. I hope everything works out and you have a great day and have a great year and